When we think of greed, we often think of billionaires or corrupt leaders. But scripture actually tells us that greed can live in any heart, even someone who has very little. In 1 Timothy 6:10, Paul writes, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil." Notice what the verse says. It doesn't say money itself is evil. Money is just a tool. The problem begins when our hearts become attached to it, when we put our trust in money more than in God. That's where greed comes in. Greed isn't defined by the size of your bank account. A person can have millions and be generous, while another person has very little and be deeply greedy. Greed is about the posture of your heart, constantly wanting more, clinging tightly to what we have, and refusing to trust God with it. Jesus talked about this in the parable of the talents in Matthew 25. In the parable, a master gives 3 servants different amounts of money, called talents, before leaving on a journey. 2 of the servants invest what they were given and multiply it, but the 3rd servant buries his talent in the ground out of fear and does nothing with it. When the master returns, the first 2 servants are praised for being faithful with what they were given, but the 3rd servant is rebuked, not because he had less, but because he refused to steward what he was given. The lesson is powerful. God isn't measuring us by how much we have. He's looking at what we do with what we've been given. And the Bible also gives us examples of wealthy people who use their resources for God's kingdom. One example is Lydia of Thyatira in Acts 16. Lydia was a successful merchant who sold purple cloth, a luxury in the ancient world. After becoming a follower of Jesus, she used her home and resources to help support the early church. Another example is Joanna, mentioned in Luke chapter 8. She was connected to the household of Herod Antipas, which means she likely had wealth and influence. Scripture tells us she helped support Jesus' ministry out of her own means. These women show us something important. Wealth itself isn't the issue. What matters is if our hearts are ruled by greed or shaped by generosity. So yes, statistically, it may be more common for wealthy people to lean towards greed. But greed isn't limited to the rich. It can live anywhere in a heart that puts money before God. The question isn't how much do I have? The question is, does what I have belong to God? When we understand that everything that we have ultimately comes from God, greed begins to lose its power and generosity becomes an act of worship.